Hello and welcome to Mirror Fighting One to Watch with me, Rich Jones. This is one of a number of new shows and podcasts we've launched here at Mirror Fighting, and we'll be looking to bring you the inside track on some of the rising stars of the sport. Ultimately, we just want to tell their stories and get to know some of these fighters that hopefully we'll be hearing a lot more from in years to come as they look to achieve big things. Today's guest is one of Eddie Hearn's top prospects and someone who's certainly tipped for the very top. After a glittering amateur career, Dalton Smith looking to become Sheffield's next big superstar and following some big footsteps. It's very much a family affair for the Smith family, with Dad Grant throwing himself headlong into running the Steel City gym. But now it's Dalton that is making waves in the sport. So I caught up with him to find out about his inspirations growing up, his relationship with Dad, and pretty much everything in between, really. And this is someone that I think is going to go on to achieve really big things. So it's great to hear from him and great to get to know him at this early stage of his career. So let's get on to the interview and hear from Dalton now. Joined now by Dalton Smith. Dalton, obviously in lockdown at the minute. Still training hard, I guess, and looking forward to your next fight.
Yeah, still training hard, but like you said, the world's just the same as it has been for most of the year. But I'm still in the gym and I'm just waiting on the next fight date.
Yeah, and just want to go sort of back to the start, really, of your journey. So, growing up, I think you started boxing pretty young, didn't you? Just tell us a little bit about how you came to start boxing, ended up in the gym, and the journey began, really.
Yeah, boxing for me started from a young age. I first went into the gym when I was 5 years old. And, that's where my dad took me into the gym. And, it went from there, really. I was playing football at the same time and realised I much preferred boxing, and ever since that day, it's been a big part of my life, and I'm in a position now where I can make it my full-time job.
And what was it about boxing that you think you took to straight away? Obviously, like you say, you played football, stuff like that, but obviously took to boxing. What was it that you think made you fall in love with the sport?
I think one of the main things was the physical side of it. You're challenging yourself every single day, and then when it comes to competing, if you didn't put the work in the gym, you get found out. And I think it was always the side that, I wanted to see how far I could go. I wanted to see how good I really was. And, once I started competing and started winning national titles and stuff, I thought, what, I'm pretty good at this. And, let's just see how far I can go. And, I just think it's the challenging side of it and seeing how far you can push yourself.
Yeah, and I gather it wasn't just you that sort of threw yourself head first into it. Obviously, your dad as well has been pretty involved. And just tell us a bit about how involved he's got in it and how he sort of came to... Did he sort of get into the coaching by you, or...?
Yeah, it was just basically the same as I got into boxing. He first took me down to the boxing gym. Steel City was run by a different guy at the time. And, he was just like me. He come into boxing with a blind eye. We didn't know what we was expecting. He's always been around boxing, never competed himself, but he just fell in love with the sport like I did, and he seen that he had a talent there with the coaching side, and once the years went by, he just picked it up and learned, and now he's a full-time coach as well. At Steel City Boxing Gym, which he runs, and we just made it into a journey for both of us.
Yeah, and how was that growing up? Because obviously, in one hand, I imagine it was great to sort of have this experience that you were sharing with your dad, but on another hand, I imagine it was pretty intense at times. What was it like, the relationship sort of growing up, and how's that relationship sort of evolved as you've got older and got wiser, I guess, and stuff like that?
I get asked it all the time. My dad's my dad, but I think with the boxing side, it's come to the stage now where most of my time with my dad is in the gym. He's like my boxing coach, and obviously out of the gym, he's my dad as well. But it's come to the point where it's just full-time boxing for me and my dad. But I wouldn't change it any other way, because I'm in a position what I've always wanted to be in, and I can't thank him enough for that.
And I guess, did it make it sort of extra special, the fact that you're sort of sharing that journey together, like the whole thing from the start?
Yeah, because obviously we're in the gym every day, and we're wanting to see how far we can go and achieve things. And I've won, like in the amateurs, I've won a lot of national titles now, and it's nice for us both to be on the journey together. And we've put a lot of hard work, had to sacrifice a lot of things, and we're in it together. And touch wood, we're there till the end.
Yeah, and when I was doing a bit of research, I read about he had a pretty bad tram accident, didn't he, when you were younger as well? I mean, you've been through your fair share of challenges, I imagine. Just tell us a little bit about that. That must have been a tough time for everyone.
Yeah, very tough time. I think it was 2007. You know, we was at the boxing gym, and sometimes my dad would go out for a run before he come back and train himself. And you know, he was out running. You know, had his hood up, his earphones in, and got hit head on with a super tram. And you know, the doctor said he wouldn't survive. And so yeah, the doctor said he wouldn't make it, and then he pulled through. And you know, I believe it wasn't his time to go, and he's here for a purpose. And I believe boxing's why he's still here, and you know, changing lives for young fighters.
Yeah, and you said when you started boxing, you like the competitive side of it. Do you think that sort of competitive edge, does that come from him? Is that part of passed down from him? Do you think he got that same sort of competitive edge of everything he does?
Yeah, 100%. You know, my dad always says pain doesn't last forever, and you know, he's always light at the end of the tunnel. You know, obviously he raised me and my two sisters as a single parent, and you know, I can look back through what my dad's been through, and you know, we've got it easier. Obviously, sometimes I wake up, I think it's hard, but you know, my dad's been through a lot. You know, raising the family, and obviously keeping the roof over our heads and stuff. So, you know, he's a very big influence in my life.
Are your two sisters into the boxing as well, or have they just had enough of it growing up?
Yeah, they both got national finals in the amateurs, but you know, they're on doing their own things now, and you know, I'm glad. I used to get more nervous for them when they was fighting.
Yeah, I guess shame they couldn't be at your last fight when it was at fight camp. I imagine it'd be a bit different not having them ringside, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. You know, but obviously certain circumstances, you know, obviously everything's behind closed doors and now, but they watched it on TV, so they still got to see it.
Yeah, and in terms of, obviously you mentioned Steel City boxing gym that your dad runs now, and obviously Sheffield's got such a great sort of history of fighters. You know, obviously everyone talks about Prince Nassim Hamid, you know, the Ingle gym and just the city as a whole. I mean, what are your earliest, I guess, growing up as a boxing fan in Sheffield, what are your sort of earliest memories of the sport in the area? I guess, you know, got good memories?
Yeah, very good memories. You know, the Ingle gym, you know, that there was the name of boxing. You know, I don't think just in Sheffield, but in the UK as well. Obviously, the champions they brought through, you know, some of the best around the world. So they were the memories for me when I was younger. You know, watching the likes of obviously Prince Nazim, Ryan Rose, Johnny Nelson, and like the new generation with Kell Brooks. So, you know, Sheffield's always been a big boxing city. So for me, I want to stand my name down for one of those big names, and you know, I believe I'll do that.
Yeah, I guess is that the dream. Just, you know, obviously you see like Ricky Hatton in Manchester, sort of Josh Warrington at the minute in Leeds. Is that something that you'd love to do when the fans get back, sort of build that profile in Sheffield and really sort of, you know, galvanise that great history that Sheffield's got as a boxing city?
Yeah, that's it. You know, from me being a young boy, sat up watching Ricky Hatton out in Vegas and seeing, you know, the fan base he had. That's what makes us and inspires us as young athletes and young fighters. You know, I want to be there one day. So, you know, obviously stay grounded, keep a good team around you. You know, I believe I'm good enough to achieve those highs, and you know, it's a long journey, but I believe I'll get there.
Yeah, and obviously you had that great amateur career and then opted to sort of turn professional. I mean, just tell us a little bit about that. There was sort of a few rule changes, things like that contributed to that. And I guess with the way it's all gone with the Olympics being postponed, it worked out quite well in hindsight. But yeah, just tell us a little bit about why you turned over and opted to go professional when you did.
Yeah, at the time, you know, I had a very good amateur career on the Great Britain team, you know, travelled the world, you know, won numerous titles for Great Britain. But obviously, at the time, all the rules changing with the weights, I had a lot of hand injuries with the protection. And, you know, it wasn't the best. And, you know, when I look back now, it was a perfect time to turn over with all the, you know, the COVID-19 and the Olympics getting put back a year. It was, everything's worked out perfect for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned the hand injuries. Yeah, I guess that's all under control now, but what must have been tough? You obviously had some tough times with the injuries when you were a bit younger.
Yeah, I think in the amateurs I had 3 operations in the space of like 3 years on my hands. But it just wasn't the gloves and you only get like a single wrap for your hands.
Yeah.
And obviously when you're fighting 5 times in a week, it's a lot of trauma and a lot of hammer on your hands. So, you know, it just took its toll on my hands towards the end. And we just thought once I turn over, I get the better gloves, the better protection with the hand wraps, and you know, it's been fine. I haven't had no hand injuries whatsoever since I've turned over now, so that's a bonus.
And obviously your dad trains sort of Charlie Edwards, and you've been around him, I guess, in the gym growing up. I mean, what's the relationship like with Charlie? You learned a lot from him growing up and training with him in the last few years?
Yeah, very close with Charlie. Obviously Sonny was there before Charlie, so obviously I've known Charlie for many years, especially when he was on the Great Britain team. And Charlie's the perfect guy to have in the gym for us to learn off. He inspires everyone. He's one of the hardest workers I've ever been trained alongside. And the proof's in the pudding. He's been a world champion, and I still think he's got more titles in him, especially at world level. So for me to be around that and in the gym, that's only going to put me in good stead for when my time comes.
Yeah, and obviously, boxers, it all comes down to the day of a fight. You spend months preparing for it, and everyone's different on fight day. I mean, for you, what are you like on the day of a fight? Are you sort of, people change a lot, don't they, in the build up to a fight? What's it like for you and your dad and everyone around fight day? Are you sort of quite reserved, relaxed, nervous? What's fight day usually like for Dalton Smith?
For me, I try to stay as calm as I can, not think about the fight. Just let it go with the flow. And I think a lot of fighters deal with it in different ways. I tend to just sit back and, what will be, will be. I put the hard work in and I believe in myself. But, I think over the years you learn what works for you and what doesn't. But, it's worked up to now. I'm a believer in don't fix something what's not broken. But, yeah, I try to stay as relaxed as I can.
And in terms of just looking back at the last fight, I mean, did it feel like the knockout at fight camp was a bit of your sort of coming out party almost? Obviously, had a few tune-up fights, looked quite good, but it was a sort of decent opponent and obviously a massive stoppage, good performance. Did you feel like that was sort of the next step for you, the sort of coming out party that everyone sort of set you up and take notice a little bit?
Yeah, that was one of the fights where, I think with all the COVID-19 and stuff, it's been good for British boxing because it's brought, the young prospects together who wouldn't have fought each other at that part of the career. And, there was a lot of pressure on me for that fight because Nathan Bennett was a good fighter. He was, I think, 9-1 at the time. So for me, I had only had 5 fights. And, to fight someone with a record like that, I'd have probably wanted that after a few more fights. But, I believed in myself and, I said, I want that fight. I want to prove to him, what level I'm at. But obviously, I got the stoppage. It was a great knockout and, it was a perfect way to, show myself in fight camp.
And there are sort of quite big expectations now early on, a lot of people sort of tipping you for the top. I mean, do you feel that pressure at all from the outside sort of noise and the people tipping you for big things, or do you kind of try and sound that out and stay grounded? What sort of how does it affect you? What do you sort of think of it?
Yeah, obviously, most of it is hype. And, you can't believe all the hype. And, I've got a lot to prove. I'm early on in my career, but, I believe I've got a good team around me and, I've got a long way to go, and there's much harder fights out there for me. But I believe in myself. I always do, and I just take every fight at a time.
Yeah, and just a few sort of quick fire-ish questions at the end, just to get a bit more of an idea of sort of your sort of background, what you thought of, fighting. Just start off with sort of favourite fighter growing up. Who was the one that you loved to watch? Who was the one that stood out?
When I was younger, I used to like Joe Calzaghe at the time.
Yeah. Good choice. I like.
Yeah, Joe Calzaghe. Yeah, I think he's one of the best British fighters we've had.
And for other people's fights, favourite fight that you remember growing up, the one that sort of caught your attention?
I think it's got a lot of people's favourites. The Gatti and Ward fights. The trilogies, what they had. Every single fight was amazing.
And what do you sort of learn from Calzaghe and also fights like that when you're watching old fights? Do you ever sort of watch them back now? Now you're sort of in a different position to when you were a kid. Do you watch old footage a lot, or?
Yeah, I watched quite a lot of old fighters, because they was the best at the time for a reason. And, I still watch those fights and it brings back memories for me when I was younger. But I think like the Gatti and Ward fights, they'll stick around for most of our lifetime now.
Yeah, definitely. And favourite shot from your repertoire? What's the one that you like throwing the most? Favourite shot?
I'll probably say a left hook. I like to throw my left hook a lot.
And best moment of your career so far?
I'd probably say the last fight at fight camp, with a lot of pressure being put on my shoulders and, at fight camp, it was the first boxing show back. The viewing numbers were massive. So I had to perform that night and I did. So that's probably one of the best highlights of my career.
And how was that? Because I went a couple of weeks later. I was lucky enough to go to the, I think it was the third card, the one that was Felix Cash headlined. And I couldn't believe how quiet it was ringside. Like, it was so eerily quiet when the fights were going on. I mean, what was it like for you when you sort of did the ring walk down the steps and then got in the ring? Was it sort of business as usual, or was it quite different? How did you find it?
Yeah, obviously business as always, but I come out, did my ring walk, and obviously as you come out, you think you're used to seeing like, for me at the minute it was like the empty seats, what I'm used to seeing, and the odd few, the small crowd in there. But I come out and it was just like it's just the matchroom staff.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I walked down, but once I got into the ring, you switch off from all that, and it's just business. It's the same in there.
Yeah, and obviously sort of the back garden at Matchroom is one thing, but what's the sort of dream venue if you could fight anywhere in the world one day? Where'd be on the bucket list?
The bucket list will be at Leppings Lane at Hillsborough, the Sheffield Wednesday ground.
You're big Sheffield Wednesday fan?
Yeah, I'd like to fill that out. Fight for a world title there, if not defend. But I think the ultimate goal as well is to fight out in Vegas.
Yeah, I think everyone say the same. And final one, doesn't have to be entirely boxing related, but if sort of the very standard question, but dream dinner party, sort of anyone you can invite, dead or alive, 3 people, can be boxing, can be anything else who spring to mind. Put you on the spot a bit, sorry.
Yeah. I'll go for Muhammad Ali, legend in boxing and out of boxing. Trying to think. I'd say Eminem. I used to love Eminem when I was growing up. One more. Who could we pick? I'd say Mike Tyson. I have 2 boxing legends there.
Yeah, sure. You could pick their brains and get a fair bit out of those 2. And
it.
Obviously, like I say, you've had that last fight in at fight camp. Just last question, moving forward, what's the sort of short-term plans now? What's the plan? Getting out before the end of the year, hopefully, or what's going on now for you?
Yeah, I'd like to get out once more before the end of the year, but obviously everyone knows everything's slow at the minute, so we just have to take every week as it comes. But I'd like to get one more fight before the end of the year. Try and get some sort of title, and then push on for a big 2021.
Nice one. Cheers, Dalton. Appreciate your time, and all the best for the future. And thanks very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.